I think this is probably a good time for me to stop and tell you that story. But when I first started working for that video production company, one of the challenges that I had was that they were on an Outlook block list. And so there's a little code that shows up in the errors that says S3150. And that just means that everybody with a free Outlook address, outlook.com, hotmail.com, live.com, msn.com, all the free addresses, none of them were receiving email from us at all, like flat out not allowed on the property. It wasn't even just going to spam. It was just like not being delivered, just completely blocked. When I found that out, of course, we had to go and like delist. And then it happened again a month later. What the freak? What is happening? What is happening with their email that is causing this problem? Am I doing something? Is it that sexual content stuff I told you about because I accidentally grabbed a picture off the internet? Don't do that. You know, what's causing this problem? And they don't tell you, by the way, when you ask to delist, it's not like they come back and say, oh, by the way, here's what's happening. So if you could just make sure you don't do that again, that'd be great. They don't tell you nothing. In fact, what they tell you when you ask to delist, I have yet to try to delist from any blacklist where the first message I get back isn't no. So the first message you get back is going to be something like, we've reviewed the situation, we've reviewed the case, the decision has been made that you don't qualify for mitigation. Awesome. I got some mitigation to talk to you about because I don't even know what's happening here and I just took this job. Okay, I'm doing my best, like you're hurting me. But their tagline is, let's blow up the internet together. I wouldn't recommend putting that in an email. It's not taken very well by some people. It's like Meet the Fockers. He's on the airplane. He's trying to get his baggage up there. And he's, what? I can't say bomb on an airplane. I can't say bomb on an airplane. Bomb, 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 bomb. That's what I felt like. I was like, let's blow up the internet together. You don't even know. We're marketing over here. Why are you giving me grief over this? I can't change their freaking tagline. But I did. I had to take it out. It's on the website. It can't be in the emails. But, you know, I had to like look at all the stuff.
What if you would have put it as a picture?
Okay, hold the questions till the end. But yeah, the question was like, what if you just put it in as a picture? Possibly, but I'm not going there because you know what? I don't need that kind of grief. Every time you ask to delist, there's a potential that the next time they're going to be less excited to let you off. At all, but definitely let you off anytime soon. They might extend the amount of time you're on a timeout.
Okay.
And I need to make some dang money because that's what we do. So anyway, that's just a funny story. I just wanted you guys to think about it because you don't necessarily know what's causing it. It could be a link. We have other clients who, oh my gosh, some clients have to have like 50 links in every email they send out. It's a templatized thing. They've got their signature with the website and the 18 social accounts and the phone number is a link. That's always fun, especially when the phone number link is the problem. Or they've got other links in there that are just like broken because that Facebook page doesn't actually exist anymore and that signature tool is so freaking old and no one's looked at it. So now this link's going to a broken link. So now, you know, my email's not getting delivered. And all of a sudden I end up on a block list for some reason. And now I'm having to go through and figure out what is the dang thing that's causing this. Is it words? Is it links, which is usually the case? Links are pretty common. And then I have to go through this process of pulling out all the links and putting them in one at a time and hoping that I'm understanding which one's the problem. It's not fun. Less is more. How do blacklists affect me? Blacklists, we'll use them interchangeably. Obviously, if you're the recipient, it's a good thing. It's supposedly protecting us from spam. The emails are going to go to spam. If you're on a block list or a blacklist, they're either going to go to spam or they're just going to get blocked entirely. They're not even going to be allowed on the property. Not all of the ISPs use all the blacklists in decision making, so there are some that don't matter. And the question I get a lot is like, well, how do I know which ones? I can give you a couple that are really common but not problematic, like UCE Protect and Zero Spam. But I can't tell you which ones exactly because there's dozens of them. And honestly, the way that I find out is when I'm on some new block list or blacklist that I haven't heard of. If it's a block list like internal, that's just going to be a problem no matter what. If it's a blacklist and they're not subscribed to it or nobody pays attention to it, well, then there's a couple of criteria that we could look at. And I'll tell you those here in a second. But not all blacklists carry the same weight. Not all of them blacklist for the same reasons. If they subscribe to the blacklist, but the reason that you're on it isn't something they care about, then they might still let you through. But if the reason is something they do care about, then they might have a problem with that. So there's kind of nuances to it. This is one of the ways you can tell if the blacklist is actually going to be a problem or not. Some of them go rogue and they start charging to delist, which is not okay. It's a conflict of interest, basically. So why would you let me off the blacklist if I pay you? What's going to keep you from putting me back on it again? UCE Protect is one of them that does that. They were one of the first ones that I found out about that does that all the time. So when you run those testers like MailGenius, really common email tester, I told you guys just stop running those tests. But when you run the tester, a lot of times it's going to say, oh, you're on a blacklist and it's 18 points minus for your score. And you look at it and it's UCE Protect. Now, most people are not going to know that that's not a problem. Because the reality is that they are basically the boy who cried wolf. And nobody pays attention to them anymore. It's kind of like Pluto. It's not a planet, apparently. I don't like this because I'm old enough that actually bothers me. Like, what do you mean? You can't tell me that it's not a planet anymore. But it didn't follow the rules. It's a rule breaker. It hasn't cleared its neighboring region of other objects. I didn't even know that was a thing. Apparently there's rules for planets. I had to look this up just to put this up here for you. But it's not following the rules. And so if the blacklist is not following the rules, believe it or not, they actually have community rules. Who knew? Well, then no one's going to pay attention to them. They're not going to be taken seriously. So if you're trying to delist from a blacklist and they're trying to charge you money, back out of that problem and move on. Just wipe that right off your shoulders. Don't worry about it. So how do I avoid getting blacklisted? Send only to opted-in contacts. There's a theme here. Avoid sending to the unengaged contacts that are older than a year, because remember, these ones are that we're going to run into higher spam trap rates. And when you hit more spam traps, you get blacklisted. Keep the hard bounces and the complaints low if your hard bounce rate's too high. And if your complaint rate's too high, just like Google doesn't like it and they're going to reward you with a poor reputation, Blacklists will be happy to take you on their list and tell everybody about it. Everybody who will listen. These people are not doing email well. And then avoid unnatural or suspicious behavior like surges in volume. So we've talked about developing a volume and consistency for your domain. Make sure that you're not doing something crazy like sending a monthly newsletter to your whole list, and then the other 29 days you're bebopping along just down here on the bottom, like a few emails here and there, and then boom, 10,000 once a month. That makes you look like a spammer and you will be treated accordingly. It's a great way to get blacklisted because it's suspicious. It's unnatural behavior. Same thing with you if you get a brand new domain or a brand new IP and you don't go through the ramp up style warm up we talked about. You just go ahead and send out to the 10,000. Even if it could take it, it's unnatural and suspicious behavior, which, by the way, you're not even going to get to the point of worrying about blacklists and reputation. The first thing that's going to hit you upside the face if you try to do something like that is the person who gave you the tool to use that domain in or to use that server from. Because they're going to immediately put the brakes on and go, whoa, Nelly, you just came into my house and you used one of my servers to send out a bunch of email way too fast. Like, slow down there, bud. Let's figure out if this is something that you should even be allowed to do. So I'm going to throttle you. No more than 100 an hour, which is too much anyway, because you're going to ruin your reputation, but it makes them happy. Or I'm going to disable your domain because you're doing these things that look like you're just going to come in here and make a big fat mess and ruin our servers and start to upset the people that we have to keep good reputations with. Avoid those kinds of unnatural, suspicious behaviors. Shoot, I'm on one. Now what am I going to do? It happens. It's not that big a deal, honestly. Spam House is a big deal. We've got somebody on Spam House right now I just found out about yesterday. It's a bummer. It sucks because we're going to have to go through this whole process, and We've been working with them to try and get them to let us help them warm up another domain. And for months, they've been telling us they didn't have time, and apparently it wasn't important. And now here we are. We don't send their email. They have clients, and their clients all send email. And so now everybody's getting affected, and we're doing the best we can to juggle and move people around. But the reality is, if we had been able to help them get this other stuff in place, we'd have been okay. But now we're kind of in a bit of a pinch. And we're having an event, by the way. We're kind of here in Vegas doing this thing. And so it's harder to manage that kind of stuff. But it does happen. I have a client who routinely is on an Outlook block list. It could be the free one. It could be the paid one. It just depends. The paid one meaning addresses that are paid email accounts. So every once in a while, we have to get them off. And the one that's for the paid accounts, I can get off in a minute. It's not hard. Like, there's a little form you fill out. It's a 3-step process. And at the end of it, it says, congratulations. Basically, you've been removed from the list. It's like, why are we going through this again? You guys aren't even taking this seriously. Why do I have to fill out this form every 2 months so that you can just take me off in a hot second? I don't even think this is serious. The one that Outlook has for their free accounts, that one takes about 3 days on average to get off of. 2 to 3 days. It just depends on if, how fast their help desk is going to get back to you. And also depends on how fast you respond to the first email where they say no. So they're going to be like, nope, you don't qualify for mitigation. And then you write them the next email and you say all the things that they want to hear. And then they let you off the list. And sometimes that's at 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't really care. I just want off the list. So it happens. Request to delist. But here's the thing. Only delist if you own the asset. If it's your domain, you can delist. If it's your IP, you can delist. If it's a shared IP that SendGrid gave you, you cannot delist off of that IP. It's not yours. You're not responsible for it. And you're trying to delist for something, by the way, that you may not even been a part of, like, you didn't even cause the situation. There's hundreds or thousands of other people sending email off of that. So if you're trying to delist off of that and you don't own it, sometimes they'll just flat out, like, you have to fill out the form and you can't because there's fields that you can't fill out. Other times, it's not that complicated and you can try to delist, but the problem is you're creating a bigger problem, because if you're delisting and not fixing the root cause, then it's just going to go right back on and it's going to be harder to get off the next time. So if they make you pay, it's not legit. Don't worry about those ones, just back out. Invalument was another one that sometimes charges to delist, not all the time. They're in this weird zone. They might be testing the waters, toes in the water a little bit, going, can we make a little bit of money here? And so they're not charging every time, they're just charging sometime. Our team's been watching this now for the last several months and talking with Mailgun about it. And we can't really quite figure out what they're doing or if there's any rhyme or reason to it. Just every once in a while, they want to charge you to get off the list. And so they're going to start to lose ranks, and eventually they're just not going to be looked at by anybody. But we're in this weird spot now with Invalument, where when you're listed, it can be problematic, but then they want to charge you. So we've just decided to say no. We're like, you know what? Give it a few days. We'll be off of this sucker. It's not affecting Google, so that's the most important thing. And y'all can just stick it. And pretty soon, if enough people are doing that and the ISPs are seeing that they're doing it, eventually no one will care about Invalument either, and then we'll be out of that mess. And get specifics if they're available. If you can find out what caused you to be listed, it's important to know that, because you don't want to end up back in that same spot. The very next email you send out, you're back on it. That's not fun. So address the root cause if at all possible.